It's about time that we show you specifically how to defeat a very, very crafty fighter like my guy, Devin Haney. And they've been on the record really going back and forth. Actually, Devin Haney was shoved by Ryan Garcia. And, there's been a lot of speculation that someone like Ryan Garcia truly doesn't have a chance against a Devin Haney. So, my responsibility is to make sure that people understand there's a method to beat any style fighter. The thing about it is you have to have the understanding of the ring and your skill set has to be intact. You just don't beat a very highly skilled master boxer without the actual ring cachet. So what I'll do is I'll go behind the scenes and show you a couple of footwork drills that it'll take and require to beat someone who's as sophisticated inside of the ring as Devin Haney. Love him or hate him, he's one of the best pure boxers in the game today and has become a masterful boxer, being in the ring with the likes of people like, and Linares is one of my favorite boxers. He's a pure
Mhm.
skill boxer. Then some people had him losing against Lomachenko, but you got to realize you can't even be in the ring with Lomachenko if you're not qualified. And Lomachenko was just recently one of the most feared boxers in the sport of boxing, gathering his titles quicker than any fighter in boxing history, getting a
Yeah.
championship in his second fight. So this is where we are. Our job is to break it down, and I have my co-host Stacy
Mhm.
here with me on the set.
Hey,
Hey, Stace.
come here. Mhm.
And for those of you who are new to the page and you don't know exactly, who I am as far as what we do, my name is Coach Eric Bradley. I've been in the game of boxing for four decades, and I'm third generation. Learned a lot of stuff, written a whole lot of books about how to do
Mhm.
this thing right that we call boxing. My education has been one of the prefaces of my identity out here, and so what we do is we share our knowledge. I had the luxury of being in over 40 championship fights, so I understand what goes on in those training camps. I understand having the ability to adapt, how important it is, and I've been on the losing side, not a lot, but definitely learned and had some experiences. As we spoke the other day, I was with former Olympic medalist and former world champion Andre Durrell, and we spoke specifically about one of our head-on clashes, actually, when he faced one of my amateurs and an the Olympic qualifiers, and he was just he was on an entirely different level. And these are the learning lessons. And then he went on to face Triple G in the Olympics. People don't realize how real you have to be when it comes down to this sport. But needless to say, education, you will learn it two ways. Someone will teach you, or you'll learn
Mhm.
the hard way. And that's what we want to prevent you
Mhm.
guys from doing. So today we're going to teach you a couple of things that a camp that is qualified would do against someone that's like a Devin Haney. Now let's just say hypotheticals. This is just what the game plan would be. Doesn't mean it'll work because there are several things that you have to have in place, right, Stace?
Mhm.
When it comes down
That's
to a
right.
game plan, yeah, you got to have the fortitude to carry it out. You have to have the adaptability. But here are a couple of things that you'll need to do when you're facing someone like a Devin Haney, because
Yep.
he the preface of his attack is to set you up and to kind of exploit your talents. Take away, maybe you have a great jab, but he'll take that away. Maybe you have a good right hand. He'll make sure that he's going to his right, staying away from your right, and he'll take
Mhm.
away the best assets. So if you want to do that, what you have to do is become a very elusive to him first and create what we call bait. And if you're in the mid range, you want to know how to do things like fight off your back foot, taking half step backs, little steps to your right, and making sure that you don't go into his game plan. So what does it look like? And here's
Fluid.
the clip
Beautiful.
of what will a
Nice.
fighter need to do when you are
Beautiful.
trying to get away from a guy who had a short right
This gets
hand.
you up
You know,
under the
this is
left
called a
hook
drop and roll.
and the overhand right. Boom.
It's imperative that you learn the science of patience and really taking the time to master the art of muscle memory. And when you have that,
Patience is a virtue in this sport. And that's where a lot of fighters go wrong. They learn the skill in camp, but they don't have the patience to actually carry it out in the fight. They get frustrated, they get annoyed, and then the next thing you know, they get caught up in that what we call that whirlwind of the other fighter. Now,
Mhm.
that is a drop and roll. In the drop and roll, you have to know there are only a few people that have really been taught how to do this right. I was maybe 9 years into my tenure when first learned how to really use it. It was at a tournament up in Norfolk, Virginia, which is one of the best amateur developmental programs. Let's say the likes of Sweet Pea Purnell Whitaker came from there. I don't need to say anybody else. Guys like Randall used to go train there, and Frankie Randall was the one that beat Chavez, that gave Chavez his first loss. That's where Floyd Mayweather would hop on the bus, Greyhound bus, and travel to get that kind of work, because up in
Mhm.
Norfolk we call it the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. The kind of amateur developmental programs those guys got. Now you're looking at people from Body Head, Coach Patrice Harris, Barry Hunter, Lamont Peterson, like Tank
Ooh.
Tank Davis.
Mhm.
All of those guys came from that
Yeah.
area, the Baltimore, where the real jump off happened. So when you're fighting these kind of fighters, you go there, you got to go to the belly of the beast. And the first time I saw it was at one of these tournaments. And when I saw this young kid, he actually ended up running back into me later and wanting to come up under our tutelage, but he got in some trouble, didn't really get to develop his career. But it was just kind of like the first time I see him executed. He was tall, fighting against a taller fighter, just like Sweet Pea used to do. And when he got into the ring with this kid, that kid was, really nice, but this kid knew exactly how to take away that boy's best weapons. And he had a very long snap and jab. And early in the tournament, he was just popping it left, pop, pop, snapping cats, putting guys lights out with headgear on in the most elite tournament. And one of the things that this kid did was, I always noticed that he was so patient and so calm. He never allowed the guy's height and his stature to throw him off. As a matter of fact, he welcomed it. And that is what we call that confidence that most
Mhm.
fighters lack having when they're fighting against a much longer fighter. But you have to believe in your skill set. And you must realize this: that move that you guys seen me just demonstrate with those guys, which is a drop off here. You have to drop on the exact same side that you're pivoting to and roll up under, come back up. And the next thing that's available to you is the left, bam. And this kid sidestep a jab, rolled up under it, cup right here to prevent the left hook from coming, even though he was on the guy's armpit. Look back, winked, left hook, good night. True story. Never seen anything as clean and perfect and calculated as this. And obviously,
Mhm.
he done it a multitude of times with evidently a whole lot of other fighters who thought that they could do that to him. And so when you look at that, you say, I got to take that. And so I realized when I started taking it back to the camps that one of our other fighters, Baby Tyson, Antoine, if you're watching, hop on. Twan,
Yeah.
outstanding fighter in one of these exact same tournaments, also was the master of that. Very short in stature, the most dangerous man I've ever seen box on the amateur level. I don't care who you name. And the first time I saw Tank, that's exactly who I thought of. The difference is this kid, Twan, Baby Tyson is what we called him, through that smoke with both hands. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, he could quake your brain. And when I seen him do it, He did it, and he would come up. Unlike the other kid was a nice pot shotter. Baby Tyson was a two-handed monster. And when he let his hands go, his hands was going. And he would throw them things with just treachery. And that's what you saw. And this is the difference between a lot of these fighters today who don't really have that confidence. These guys are shorter in stature, and they have the belief system and the confidence to really take what they got and push it up to an entirely different level. So when you're fighting someone like a Devin Haney, you have to understand the slippery and the slickness of him. And you have to actually set him up. So the minute he even flinches, you got to be ready to slide over, and you got to be ready on the point of attack to throw the left hook, throw the right to the body. You never aim for his head. You always keep one thing in the game plan. Never get excited and throw to his head, because that's what he depends on. So if a guy like Ryan Garcia wanted to win a fight like that, it's very important that he knows how to set traps. He knows how to take that half step back and pop, use his length, because he got good arm reach. And I wouldn't say for sure that he has a longer arm reach, but you're going to need it, because setting traps is going to require him to shorten the distance as Devin is coming in. It's just like I said, here's the playbook on defeating the guy, play by play. And when you're using it, you practice and practice. When you get out of the gym, you go home and you practice it more. When you wake up that morning, you practice it more. You work out, you practice it some more. You go to the gym, you practice it some more on someone, with the coach, in the ring. Then you come out, you practice it some more. You don't stop, because this is an unnatural rhythm. This is an unnatural thing that you have to do, but you have to embody it and encompass it until it's second nature to you. Like Andre Durrell said the other day, I was unconscious doing it. I was unconsciously doing it. So that's kind of it. Here's a little plug from Devin Haney speaking his mind.
We seen Ryan quit before, and I think that this won't be anything different. I think once you have that quit in you, it's installed in you. You know how to do it, and I think he'll quit on April the 20th.
And you see, yeah. So with that being said, there's something to be said about a fighter that quits, Stace. And
We were talking about that. We were talking about that before we went live. That's a real thing. It's in there. It's in there. So it'll be interesting to see the fear.
The fear sets you into a place, in a position that when you have committed to doing something and then you get in the ring, just like Ryan did against Tank, the only reason that he surrendered, if you counted at 10, you don't get up at 10. So I'm just going to be honest. We know in the real boxing world what that was. You don't get up at 10. If you want to fight, you get up before the count of 10. And I know what happened is you find yourself in a position that you've never been in before. And that's scary. And you shrink. And so what Devin Haney is leading on to is saying, he'll shrink when it gets hot, because I'm going to show him something that he's never seen before. And when you're in there against bigger fighters.
Yeah, I was going to say, these boys have known each other a long time. And in that same clip that you just posted earlier in that interview, Devin speaks to the fact that we've been going at it a long time. We know each other, but I've just pretty much passed this guy. And so that's, I think one thing's for sure, since the date was dropped that this fight's going to happen, there's going to be a lot of smack talk. They're going to blow this thing up, as they should. And I know I appreciate you with your expertise showing what is it that we're actually looking at. What is going to be, Ryan's biggest challenge in going against Devin?
Yeah, the biggest thing is that the psychological thing and his strength, and just like the young man said before, that when you get in there, and we've had a lot of people hit the page, and they're concerned about having their first fights, whether they're going into the amateurs or they're going into the pros. And what happens is, they are not assured when they leave training camp. You know, we've
That they're
had coaches
ready.
just recently as last night asked, is 6 weeks enough? If you have not been active, 6 weeks is not enough. If you've been
Hmm.
very active, like I said, with Andy Ruiz versus Anthony Joshua, the first one, Andy Ruiz had been fighting on a consistent basis, and he had
Right.
just fought weeks before that. So he was prime. He
Mhm.
didn't need 6 weeks. He was already 6 weeks to the good, and actually fought the same type stature guy as Anthony Joshua and knocked him out. So he was prime for that style of fighter. He was prime to not have to do 6 weeks because he had just finished fighting. And that's what, there are just so many questions that have to be answered basically when you have a fighter that wants to really do well, and especially he wants to do well for his coaches, the people who put a lot of time into him. And with that being said, what will happen is they don't do enough repetition in particular areas, or they don't follow a guide, so they have oversights and missing training. That's why these guides are so important for these
Priceless.
individuals to use, because you don't miss a beat. You do enough clinching, you do enough infighting, you do enough perimeter and ring generalship work. You understand how to deal with cuts, swelling, low blows. Like, you got to train all of that stuff, because when it comes, it comes. You got to understand what peak week is. You got to know all of these different layers, and
Mm.
these things are going to happen. And if you
Yeah.
don't understand him, the fighter, his normal instinct as a fighter, that's his primal mode. That's lit up. And when that goes off, something's not right. He knows it. He just don't know what it is, because he doesn't have enough experience. And so that's what those guys are feeling. They are
Yeah.
feeling,
Yeah,
a lot of.
it's so tough to see those DMs come in, and it's that time of the season that it's just everybody, it's really active in the sport right now, and both the pro level
Mhm,
as well as amateur, and it's really challenging to, see those fighters, DM us. They're
mhm.
worried about, going into their tournament.
Yeah, well, when a young man asks, "Are they fighting for sure?" Yeah, the fight is set. You can pull up
Yeah.
YouTube, and that clip I just showed you was from YouTube. So they have already interviewed. They've already had a shove
Media
off.
has started.
Yeah, and it's kind of special. Shouts out to my man Earl. Appreciate you, Earl. Back at you, brother. Thanks for tuning in on the live stream. And my man, what's his name, Mr. McCullough. Special shouts out to Mr. McCullough over on Facebook. Our job is to make it very clear that I don't want you guys to lose confidence in yourself. Boxing is like going to school to become a doctor. You will need a PhD. A lot of you try to take shortcuts, and you don't truly understand that it truly takes so much more. So, like Roy Jones said on my page, he said, you need to have a coach that understands making adjustments. He needs to understand your stature. So if you're short and got short arms, he needs to understand how to train you. If you're short with long arms, he needs to know how to train you. If you're tall and lanky, he needs to know how to train you. These things all matter, because that coach is only a human being. He could totally set you up for failure, and all you're trying to do is fight and have a fair chance at winning. But in boxing, there's so many different layers and ventricles that you just don't understand are coming. And so, with that being said, uh, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks, Mr. McCullough. I love you back, bro. We do what we do. And
Mhm.
if you're doing this, it is an education with it. I didn't write 29 books on boxing and shoot 100,000 videos because it's not necessary. I would have chosen something else to do. I find areas where they need help, and I did this for the 30 to 25-year-old Eric, who was looking for knowledge about boxing. I didn't want to see more fights. I needed to find out how to do it, like take it into the gym and prime and drill my body with this skill and technique, and make sure I'm not doing it wrong, and make sure that I can put it together in a set of skills. And then how do I get it from the floor to the boxing ring? And then how do I get it from training in the ring to sparring? And then how do I get it from level 1 and 2 sparring to level 3 and 4 sparring? And then how do I become a true fighter after learning all of those boxing drills and then them skills and then learning them in sets and then having my own concept of boxing? Because that's what you have to realize. It's not about learning a technique. It's not about learning a skill. You have to then get your degree or your diploma in the concept of boxing, so that now when you're talking about it, you understand what you're seeing, you understand why you're seeing it. And then you start getting what we call your next level, which is your craft. When you understand the concept, you can create a craft and you start looking like you look and stop looking like, Sweet Pea, or looking like Jerry Cooney, or looking like Michael Spinks, or looking like some of these former fighters who did it at a highest level. You don't have to copy them now because you've developed, you have your own concept, you have your own craft, and you're very, very slick with it. And then the last 2 levels of boxing, you all know, I said it last week. If you haven't seen it, go and watch the video. They're in the subscriber portal on Instagram and the membership group on Facebook. Join either one, you can see it. But the key is learning how important it is to know all of that. If this was confusing to you, you don't know boxing. So you got to learn boxing. So you got to add to your team. Your coach should be actually adding to the team. And if you're coaching and you didn't know what I just said, you're in trouble, because you're going to eventually face, and I'm going to say it out loud, a master boxing fighter.
Yes.
And they're going to peel your ears back just like we did. And I did it for 4 decades. So I have the resume, 40 titles. And at the same time, 4 Olympic tenures. Sorry, we're doing number 5 this year. When we get Coach Beck guy in there, that'll be 5 Olympic tenures. You tell me who you know with that. Okay. So this is where, if you didn't understand what I just said as a coach, you're in trouble, because these guys are getting to the real levels. So Stacey, can you read this comment that this young guy said?
Yes. Our friend Earl wants to know, do you think Garcia's I guess he wants to know, did Garcia win his last fight with Tank? Were they just out coached or outboxed?
No, he's just in there against a better fighter. He's not on Tank's level. And the only reason I say that is because you don't box with your hands, you box with your feet. And he has absolutely zero footwork. Zero. Like, that's why Tank knew he was going to destroy him, not just beat him, but he was going to destroy him. Could you imagine if he would have gotten up, what would have happened to Ryan Garcia? And I like Ryan Garcia. He's good for the sport. He has brash attitude. He brings a lot more. He's a promoter's dream. He looks the part. He talks the shit. The thing about it is he doesn't understand anything from the waist down. And he had been boxing for 20 years. That's kind of why you'll find these deficiencies in boxers, because they have trainers who don't have boxing education. They're trying to do it off of YouTube. And I promise you 100%, that's where they're learning. They're learning off YouTube. They're learning off Facebook. They're learning off Instagram. They're learning off TikTok. They're learning anywhere that a coach is showing them a drill. And the thing about it is they don't understand how to break that drill down. Where does that drill come from? Where's the benefit? What is the pressure? What is the pivot point? When is the not do this? When is it to never do this? And when is it to apply it? There are a lot of other rules that come with watching a skill that you see. But these guys, they don't have the actual context to use that skill, because they just stole it off of Instagram. So I always tell you, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but the boxing ring will tell the truth about everyone sooner or later. Right? Yeah. 100%. Let me see. What my man say?
Garcia needs master boxing.
Yeah, he definitely needs. We got coaches in our We got coaches in our under our tutelage that would definitely take and work with them and guide them the right way and make sure. See, it's not that you have to teach him the skill. See, he's learning skills on his own. If you go back and look at his last fight, he started fighting off his back foot. He looked like an 80-year-old man because it's not in him. But I'm sure when he was practicing looking like Muhammad Ali in the gym, it looked like he had it. But when you're in there against A+ fighter, it goes away. But he fortunately was in there against a B fighter, and he was able to pull it off because that kid was bringing smoke to him. And I said, this is not going to go good for Ryan with that bad looking footwork. And he was able to pull it off. He walked the guy into a punch. It doesn't take a whole lot when you understand how to use the ring. So he's practiced enough to look horrible doing it. But then the guy walked right into a Deravan. No, I was thinking Derevyanchenko. That wasn't, I can't, but the guy fought like Derevyanchenko. So you just got to realize this game is real, and do practice, don't escape. Do your program mediums, and program mediums are not the actual skill. They are the things that you do to sharpen your skill, whether it's conditioning, whether it is doing things to get developed physically, improving your cardio, mastering the science of breathing, knowing how to outthink your guy psychologically and keep mental composure. There are all of these other things that you got to work on that your trainer's not sharing with you at times. And that's why you see people have mental breakdowns in the ring, right? That's exactly why you see guys have mental. Yeah, and Ryan Garcia had a mental breakdown. He hadn't been in that situation before. And so therefore he crumbled like a cookie. And that's what's going to happen when you don't have that other layer of learning. There's your actual skill training. And then you have to do what gets it into the mind. You have to read. So it becomes a photographic trajectories. It'll be in your mind like data. You have to read. The science has proven that if you read something and you see something, that it's 90% more likely. And then you have to do the practical training before you get into actual training. And practical training is going to elevate your skill set that much more. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like these young kids that I have whether
under, roll, back, under,
these boys
roll, back,
base.
roll, back. Like I was just saying, it is imperative that you're patient in executing the muscle memory stages of developing the skill so you can transfer it into the ring or wherever it is that you have to transfer it into.
That drop and roll is a beast. That was drop, roll, both directions. And how many repetitions it takes to develop a skill set like that. See, it just looked like something that was smooth, but you got to be an absolute scientist to deliver that and get that many people doing it simultaneously. You're talking about when you first start, it looks like the Three Stooges.
I was going to chime in on that because I was there when this was being done. And the clip that you guys are seeing is just a minuscule part of the training that this team was under to execute this drop and roll. It is not easy. They make it look like dance, and that it's a natural flow. And it is, diligent work, hours after hours.
And I'm a maniac. So if you're ever in front of the tutelage, anyone that's under my tutelage, you're gonna get the shit, because you're not going to stop until you get it. And there are tiers, and then there's progressions, and then there's developmental stages, and then there's the necessary required muscle memory based upon the 848 rule. Every single skill must be beat down into your stinking face and muscles for 848 hours, or I'm gonna kick you in the neck. I don't care who you are. You're not going to get into a ring until you manifest that skill, and then that skill in sets, and that you can transform from the floor to the ring once again, so that you can transfer it from the floor into the ring. And that's where these coaches are not always crossing the T's, dotting the I's, and hooking the C's. That's why you see one-sided fights, period, because they're undergroomed. They have seen particular skills. They have felt like they had it, and then they got into the ring, and then everything went void. Amnesia. Yeah, and that's what's going to happen to you if you don't get this stuff in your body. So if you don't really do boxing, don't you even think about going into the professional levels of boxing. You're going to get your head blowed off your shoulders, because in this era, people have more access to people like me, where in the 90s and in the early 2000s and in the mid 2000s, they didn't have accessible knowledge in educational books to learn and read when they're home, and then training videos to follow. And then they can come on the next day and watch this guy on his live stream. That wasn't accessible. Now people have that, and you can watch these kids coming up in the nationals. And I'm down here in South Florida. And if you come down here, it kind of reminds me of back in the days when you're in places like VA, DC. The difference is these kids are a little bit more privileged in some of these programs. It's more flourishing over there. These boys, they're coming for your heart. They're coming to get out of the hood. And I'm talking about the real hood. There are hoods, and then there are treacherous hoods. When you're in Baltimore, that's a treacherous hood. You don't even belong. You go there, you'll get eaten. You think you've seen a hood until you go to Baltimore. When you go to places like that, you know you got it easy. So don't even start tripping, because those boys will give you the smoke. That's why they produce so many killers. That's why Michael B. Jordan wanted to train up there with Patrice Harris. And Patrice and them has been in all three creeds, because what he's learning there and the way they train, the mindset there, is what makes motion pictures. If you put it on a big screen, it's the truth. It's the reality. It's just like the show The Wire. They shot it in Baltimore. It ranked over The Sopranos because of the substance. So if you don't understand about that area, that's where I bred all my fighters. When it was time to go get the smoke, we took them and put them in the dungeon, turn up the furnace, and lit their asses up.
Yep.
You feel what I'm saying? So hopefully you guys got a lot from this and realize that there's strategies, and then there's absolute processes in developing your athletes. So if you're trying to get your athlete to that next level, just make sure you can't fool the game. You can't fool the game, and you have to be conscious of having them guys be present and understand program mediums and understand philosophies, and taking this stuff home and stamping it into their hippocampus. That's the mind. You got to get it in there, so when they get hurt, they get dazed. They have embodied it on multiple layers of their body. Up here, the frontal cortex, their memory. The second layer, they got it into their body. They got it into their fiber. Then it's subconscious. Just like Andre Durrell said the other day, I got it. I was doing things unconsciously in the ring. And that's where it'll be when you store it the right way. So if you don't have all those layers, you better follow Master Boxing, or you might end up facing one of the master boxers. That won't be good for you. So hopefully this gave you some value. You guys enjoyed it. Let us know. Continue to follow. Stacey, you got anything to say to the audience today?
No, I appreciate you guys being here on this Valentine's Day. Definitely wanted to share some good stuff with you.
Good.
And yep, we can expect this fight to be one that they're going to really, create a big buzz about. So excited for what's about to come down.
Sound good. Tomorrow we're going to come on live around this time, and we're going to do something very cool for the boxing gym owners. Show you guys how to really preface and create your offers for these individuals who are trying to come up into your gym And I just think it's going to be an absolute awesome experience for all of y'all. And some of you are probably interested in starting your gym. So just tune in. It's going to be cool. It's going to be free, and it's on me. Coach Bradley signing out. Be blessed at Godspeed. Special shouts out to all my brothers in Top Trainer University, AKA the School of Boxing. We out.